Go. All right, we're recording. Whoops, wrong. There we go. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Um, I've been looking at your games from this week, and they were really, really interesting. They were interesting in the sense that I saw you doing something which I think you're sort of experimenting with. Um, and a lot of it has been sort of the pattern I see is like you sacrifice lots of inside stuff for big outside walls.
Yep.
And I'm seeing you do it a lot. And you've had a couple different problems with it. The first is, I'm always down with sacrificing stuff, and I always like big outside walls, so it sounds like a good thing. But first off, sometimes you're sacrificing when you don't have to. When there's just a local solution. This game has at least 1.5 examples of that.
Okay.
And there's also sometimes you end up sacrificing so much that there isn't much of the board left over afterwards. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That makes sense.
So, they've been mostly pretty good-looking sacrifices, but they do sort of accumulate in weird ways. And this game I thought was a really good example. So far we're going to start with, large sacrifice is sometimes unnecessary. I see your comments. I think it's good that you take notes. I think it makes total sense. You take them right here, because I have other students who like come with notebooks and stuff. I've told them that you can just write stuff. Sometimes what you can do is you can go and write on the move number in the review. It is possible to do that. You just ask me for control, and I'll let you do it. You can ask me for control like after the game, after the review, everything, and you can just go in and annotate as much as you want.
I like doing it here because you can see it the entire time.
That's true. Right. That's also true. Right. So anyway, this starts with some stuff that I'm pretty sure isn't Joseki, but it looks playable. I'm almost certain this move should probably be here. But I'm not sure. I haven't seen this before, but okay. White comes out here, and the main sort of thing that I would be trying to think about is how exactly do we defend this group?
Yeah.
Right? So you come out, and white pushes here, trying to deny you eyes. Now, you could also probably have just gone in here and gone for the eyes, and this looks okay to me. But it is true that white's going to defend like this or something, and gets stronger here. So it makes sense that you don't want to do that. And you play here, white does this, and then you went for this. Which I cheated here and looked at AI, because this, I couldn't figure this position out. I said, it doesn't feel like black should be able to get away with this. But AI said, no, actually, you should be able to get away with this. This is fine. I thought you would be playing like this, and I was going to say, well, maybe you can skip this one and just do that in order to defend your group. Instead, you just cut, and white makes a critical mistake, which is this Atari. And why this is such a bad mistake, I will show you in a sec. There is sort of a beautiful Tsuji here. It's not even that hard to spot once you've seen it a few times, and I'm going to show you both the Tsuji and like an example of another position where this might happen. But anyway, you connect, and the white's really big mistake is giving you that stone in Sente. Okay? So when he Ataris you here and you come down, you do come down because you realize there's no Maida method, right? And he follows you here and you Atari here. And here is where this stone becomes important. You just sack these guys. But you do not have to. Okay? Now, doing this does require you being able to read this out, but it's not that complicated once you've seen this a few times. Okay?
You Atari M16, and then you go up. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're
then
guessing. Yeah?
yeah, and then N14, and then maybe you extend L16 or something like that.
Perfect. And
And
we have
then
the
this.
ladder at A and the
Yeah.
capture at B as Mii.
Yeah.
And it might look for a second like this gets white out of it, right? Because then there's this. But no. You still got him.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Remember how a few weeks ago we were talking about this kind of shape, where black has sort of a, let's say, sort of like a kema here, and white has this stone underneath. And I was talking about how bad of an idea in terms of shape this is for white,
Yeah.
right?
Or is it the same
And I was saying you could just do here, for instance, and then maybe you can cut, instead of pushing here first. And then black very frequently can just do the double hane here, despite all the cutting points, because we said white's liberty issues were just as bad as black's, right? And here's just this very common shape that looks exactly like, well, it's going to look very familiar to you, right?
Ah. Yeah.
Right? It's a very common pattern, and it's sort of embedded into exactly this. And you notice this really ugly shape that white makes here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we look back at the game, here's this really ugly shape. It's even worse because it's got this stone at X. Right?
Yeah, that was actually a lot of reason why I was like looking at this for so long is the shape just looks really bad.
Yeah, the shape's really
So I
bad.
didn't look outside. I should have looked outside.
Yeah, right. You look on the outside. This shape is very, very bad, but you can't actually win the capturing race on the inside or anything. You've got were you looking at like cool stuff like this?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
like,
none of that actually works, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but the outside is another problem because of the cutting point and all the issues. White frequently can try something like this instead to try to fix the cutting points on the outside.
Yeah.
And the piece of technique you Atari here before you... no, you don't. You play this first. That's interesting. Do you Atari here or not? Probably you Atari here. And now the capturing race is actually a thing. I think white's okay-ish in the sense that he's not actually losing the capturing race, but you are getting all of the outside forcing moves. Maybe there's something better. I don't know. This gets him into, I think, less trouble than the other one does. This is all similar to like a Takamoku Joseki. I like to talk about this one a lot, where this is a bad mistake for white. And you can also see it in this order, and this is a bad mistake. And you can probably guess this is a bad mistake because we've talked about this shape a lot, right?
Yeah.
Right. And in this case, this trick just fails. Oh, probably the same thing works in the other game. We'll take a look in a second. But essentially, you give this Atari, and then you attach on this side.
Oh,
because when he does this, you come here.
Yeah, got it.
Right, and he connects, and you just cut, and you come out, and this whole thing is dying. So probably now that we've said that, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You Atari here, and then you don't Atari this, you just jump. And this went completely haywire for white, right? Yeah, okay. There we go.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's the move that I was looking for while talking and not thinking. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So that's how it works. So yes, this is the really cool way to take advantage of the liberty shortage. So actually, this doesn't help white at all. It probably gets even worse. Anyway, all of this stinks for white. It all just blows up, and instead you sack. And I think sacking is okay. I mean, the main issue here is that you've basically... What ends up happening from this cut is that you just burnt all of the agi here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is slightly worse than, for instance, just doing something like this.
Yeah, I can
right?
see that.
It's not. It's not even slightly worse because, for instance, there's lots of stuff. In particular, I wanted to say about like this variation. There's this peep here, which is going to be very useful. And you can come out here or something. You probably don't want to do this now because this is weak. But right, there's lots of weaknesses in this white shape, and you've got rid of all of them by doing this. Right, they're just all gone. On the other hand, you do have this outside wall. The problem with this outside wall is that, yes, it's a wall, but also it has no eyes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You have this really nice... You have one outside forcing move, which is very, very useful at triangle, which will help you make eyes if you need them. Right?
Yeah.
But it's going to help make eyes. It's not going to give you the 2 eyes you need. You decide to treat it like a wall and attack. Instead of treating it like a weak group. I think this is okay. So long as you understand that white is able to fight back against you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
This is more a fight than it is a pure attack. Because you're not super strong either. Like, you're okay. Right? But white is ahead of you here. Right?
Yeah.
And you don't have eyes and stuff like that. We're lucky that white doesn't have this peep or stuff because of this, right? So you can just ignore it. It's not even a peep. If white tries to do this, he's just dies. So he's got to connect and you're fine, right? So that's not a peep. So this helps a lot, but it's something. So we come in here. White tries this. And here's some interesting stuff. You jump out, white jumps out, and then you do this to prevent white from connecting.
Yep.
So probably okay to jump out. But then you come here to prevent white from connecting, which sort of means that you shouldn't have jumped out. You probably should just play this.
I forgot about that move. I forgot about the Kosumi to prevent the connection. So I remembered it after I jumped. It's like, oh, I should have done this.
Well, no, I think it's perfectly fine to jump. What you do is you decide that you're not necessarily so interested in capturing this. You mostly just want to defend your own stones.
Yeah.
And you connect like this. Or you can even jump out again. The thing is, this is not actually that good for white. For instance, if you just think about this, here, you're breaking this area.
Yeah.
And also this cut is an issue, because white doesn't have any ladders because you have this wall.
Yeah.
Right? So this is not that good for white. It's not necessarily a good idea to do this. Probably, I think I prefer this version, but they're both pretty reasonable, right? So anyway, we do this, and we sort of go all in here. Now, I would like to think about this a little bit, because you play... Okay, right. So we've essentially spent all this effort here. The first thing to realize is that the stone's not dead. You're still a little weak on both sides. Like, white could fight back if he wants to. It's not a good idea for white to fight back because... Why do I... Oh, right. It's not a good idea for white to fight back because you can connect. And he just ends up with this floating group. Right?
Yeah.
But we have this whole bunch of effort invested here with surprisingly little payoff. Right?
Yeah.
Because we've actually sacked this, and we've given white some moves here.
Yeah.
Right? So what we do end up with is a position that you can play with, that you have like A and B Miai, but you didn't actually get like a very good wall, right? And there's two things that cause this, okay? The first is, and I mean this one's really complicated, is the unnecessary sacrifice of these three. Now, I don't necessarily always expect that you're going to be able to find this, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, you sacrifice them in this way, and I'm like, well, you could have just played this, right?
Yeah.
without the sacrifice at all. You could have just done this. And the difference is that you didn't fix white's weaknesses. And this makes a really, really, really big difference. Because essentially, the main thing that you have going for you is that this is solid.
Yeah.
But white's solid too.
Yeah.
Right? So now we're like, well, I'm not really sure exactly what you got out of this.
Yeah, I'm like counting it up, and it looks like, white gets a moil in the bottom right, 10-ish points in the top right, maybe like 10 to 15 points, and I get, I don't know, 5 points maybe. We'll see.
Well, we don't know exactly how many points it's going to be, but what I want you to do is I want you to feel like you've given up a little more than you should have.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of this is also sort of this move's fault. Because so long as you're willing to do this, you still have, this has some center-facing influence, and it's going to break ladders and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
But essentially what you do is you really went all in on let's capture that stone. So why do we want to capture that stone? Well, if you think about it, we talk about soldiers and bankers all the time. You're probably claiming it's a soldier, right? You're saying it's a soldier because it's attacking this stuff.
Yeah.
So it's an important stone to get rid of, right? But the thing is, the reason why you're trying to get rid of it is in order to defend the square stuff.
Yeah.
Is there maybe a better way to just defend a square?
Well, what you were talking about is P12, just to connect them.
Just connect them,
get
yeah.
my shape.
Right. The other difference here is that, so with this one, all this stuff out here is probably forcing because you don't want to let him descend today. Maybe one's a little too far out, but, even this stuff, right now, probably not a good idea. He's still weak with all of it, but this is all very forcing eventually because you don't want to let him connect, right? So he's got a whole bunch of forcing moves that make sure that you don't actually have influence facing that way right now. Right? You have some ladder running this way, and it turns out that you're going to answer him if he plays here, then maybe you don't actually have the ladder.
Yeah. I think I was just so tunnel visioned on the fact that white can connect. I was like, I don't want that, and then
yes. Right, because you're trying to kill the stone instead of asking yourself why you're trying to kill the stone.
Yeah.
Right? And, you are right. It is an important stone because it's able to fight back against you.
I do think I understood why I wanted to kill the stone, though I didn't do that second order thinking of, can I accomplish the same goal as killing the stone? But I think I think here I was too focused on how do I prevent them from connecting, and then when white played away, it was like, well, do I really want to invest another stone into this area? And it was kind of hard to justify.
Yeah, the answer is no, right? Probably. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Now, here's the thing about this. I was thinking about this position a little bit, because white's made both of these moves, and yet you've made all this investment to make this stronger. And I don't think there's that much aji of him actually breaking this, no matter how strong those stones get. So I had this thought, what if you invade at 3-3?
Wait, why is there no way for...
Well, because you can always have, A and B Mei, right?
Oh, I see. I can always connect up.
Yeah, and it basically doesn't matter what happens here.
Yeah, okay.
So my thought was, can we make them look over-concentrated? That was the idea of invading at 3-3 here. Seeing if you can make these two guys look over-concentrated.
Man, you never like 3-3s. It makes sense. I get it, but this is probably the first time you've ever said suggested 3-3 to me.
All right. Anyway, I don't hate 3-3s. I'm perfectly fine if you play them. I don't like playing them myself. But this is fine. It's perfectly okay. You play this move. This move looks fine too. White plays this and this. And this is a really interesting idea from White. Because he's saying that these guys, instead of being over-concentrated, he's going to not play another move in here. They're going to justify not doing that. right? And they sort of do. Like if white just plays this, you know the usual Tsuji, right? The cut here.
No, I forgot. I keep on forgetting.
Well, don't worry about it
Okay.
because now it doesn't work because he's got these guys,
Ah, okay.
right? So when we do this, your next move was this one, right? And he had to
Okay.
respond here, but that's just not the case anymore, right? He can play like, oh, can he actually get away with this one? This is interesting. If you stretch here, he's locally not working, but he can capture you like this. So what you do is you Atari here first, and then here. No, he can probably get away with this anyway. Okay, this is very fancy. He's got Atari first, and then squeeze and sack, and then capture here. And you can still get out with these two stones, but when he comes out here, then this is just a wreck.
Oh, I have a
Right. Anyway, that's very fancy. But the point is like if you can't find this, he can find better moves than this one. That's all we need. That's all we need to think about, right?
Yeah.
These two stones make a difference in the fight, right?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting you to be able to read all that mess. Don't worry about it. Okay. So what he does instead.
Can we just go over the normal?
Yes. So let's get rid of these two guys. Let's take them out, right? So the pattern here is that Hihanes you stretch, and then when he goes again, now you cut. And the cut is a sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? And when he does this, you are stretching, and the reason that we're doing all of this is because we want all of the outside moves in Sente.
Yes. Okay.
All of them.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Because the point is here, and it's really important you don't play this one first. These are the sacrifice stones, and we're going to start with the moves that he plays, where his response does not take liberties from the sacrifice stones.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
So when you start with this and he plays this, then you do this, he'll just capture you, and you don't get A anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
So you get P.
Or you can play this one now, and he'll just capture you, and you don't get this one anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the first move is the one where his answer doesn't take your liberties. This move is not in one of these guys' liberties.
Yep.
Right? So you do those first. And this is just a general rule for all this kind of squeezes. Right? And then we do this, and we get this one also. And then we can connect with something like that, or something like this. Or we can Tanuki. It depends on the exact position.
Got it. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
That rings a bell.
Yeah, I've shown this to you before, I know. Okay, so anyway, we get to this position. This all... Yeah, White decides that he's going to say that these are enough to fight. And you responded very well in your thinking, saying, well, actually, these guys are weak. I think that's good thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But in the process, what you do is you end up sacrificing everything here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we go to this. I'm just going to show you the end position. We'll just think about this for a second, right? Because you do get these two guys.
Yeah.
But the cost is just outlandish. If we go back to where this starts, right? Has White made a serious investment in these two stones? Is it that big a deal for you to capture them?
No.
Right? How about this? Was this ever White's before?
No.
And with almost no weaknesses at all, right? Let's actually look at the end position. And this is like the key thing about when soldiers get sacrificed, right? These are soldiers. These were the cutting stones.
Mm-hmm.
And when the cutting stones are gone, there's almost no forcing moves left.
Yeah.
Right? So it's actually super, super, super clean. This territory is much cleaner than if he didn't have a sacrifice inside.
Yeah.
Right? Because the fact that he just captures you removes almost all of his weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right. So A lot of this, the fault of all of this, you are right in a few things. He does have this major weakness here. This stone is still botherable, and he's low on liberties. And all of this makes sense. And you could just not throw in here and make this Atari.
Yeah.
Right? And now this fight is much easier. Does this just work? I think so, yeah, because none of these actually work because you have all the ladders, right? Like your 4 is being captured. And this way also, you have, yeah. And you have the ladder, this ladder runs into your cornerstone up here, right? So it looks like this just works. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just reading it.
You know the tip about this? This cornerstone behaves exactly the same as if it was at Tengen.
I know. I read. I saw the tricks, and then I read. What was it? Fundamentals, lessons in the fundamental of Go, and he's like, "Don't do it." So I was like, "Okay."
I see. Okay. Yeah. So definitely for the purposes of like reading exercise and practice, I do recommend. I do recommend reading out the full ladder. But on the other hand, if we're talking about just getting things done fast, some of these ideas are bad. Like if you do the zigzag and you just look at the outside stones, it's always important to make sure that you at least read the end of it. Just in case there's some other kind of stones around here or something. Right?
Yeah.
And there's like all kinds of heuristics and really complicated things, and remembering and learning all of that is harder than just reading the end of the ladder. Right? Keeping it shorter, I mean, you just sort of imagine the stone is here because the Hoshi points are the same, right? So if it was at like the Komoku point, you remember it up here and stuff like that. And that trick, again, you know, it's sensitive to outside stones, but what you can usually do is, I mean, you need a little bit of imagination. You transport all of the outside stones also.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just whatever part is relevant. And the only time that's ever going to fail is if it's going to be one of those weird ladders where he runs here and then turns again or something. And then when you're turning here, you're not running into this.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And you can sort of get around that by like reading up to here where it turns and then sort of visualizing it over here. But at that point, we're once again getting into one of those situations where it might be easier just to read the ladder. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, it turns out this just works. However, it doesn't have to just work. You can connect like this. And this time, for starters, maybe connecting here is better, right? This time, for starters, like, this just works, right? So he's got to defend here. Yeah. And now if you want to sack, you're sacking much less. Much less. And you're capturing on a much bigger scale. Now, they're not actually fully captured now, but it's okay. Now, on the other hand, you still don't have to sack. You don't have to sack. The main reason is that this is dead.
Oh, yeah.
Right? This is sort of like you really don't have to sack here. The fight's really good locally. Right? And you ended up sacking, like, here's the thing. This is the position. You ended up sacking literally all of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Despite the fact that I love that you sacked and I love that you take the outside wall, there is the sense in like, let's actually think, what did you actually get from this? Well, you actually got this much.
Yeah.
And here's the important one. Are these stones even really soldiers? Well, they weren't soldiers before, right? Maybe they're soldiers now in the sense that they were like attacking this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing, when you sack this stuff, then Did you defend these guys by capturing them? No, you didn't. You gave them up.
Yeah.
Right? And so
Yeah.
were they soldiers before? Well, there's a really important thing that's showing me that they're not soldiers. This stone here. Let's call it C.
Yeah.
All right? That stone defends this pretty much completely.
Yeah.
And since that's defending this, and you sacked the other hand, then these guys weren't attacking anything.
Yeah.
Right? So if they're not attacking anything, they're not soldiers, then you're saying, well, maybe they're bankers.
Yeah.
And I mean, the capture is big, right? But if you're talking about just pure capture size, because the strategic value of the stones is almost none, right?
Yeah.
Then it's very clear that you gave up much more than you got.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it's the second case of this where sort of you sacrifice and completely fix all of your opponent's weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them were tactically completely unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you were locally in a very good position to fight back. Right? So I'm like, well, I mean, I'm not going to scold you for sacrificing. I think it's cool. I think the idea makes sense. But you suddenly end up with this position where you're like, you've given up both this and this for essentially only this. And I know that it looks big, but if you think about all the stuff you gave up for it, it doesn't seem like it's equal.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now we get to here. Usually you're going to want to come out with this stone. I was really surprised to see you attach underneath. That said, maybe this is not a bad time to attach underneath. Usually when you come out either this way or this way, you're saying I want to attack one of these two stones. Triangle or square. Right?
Yeah.
But I think maybe you were saying that you can't really attack triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because he's too strong here? Was that your thought process?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
it was
actually
too close.
agree with it. So despite how unusual this move is, I actually think this might be a good time for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a weird move. White does something very funky here, and I just want to stop for 1 second at this point and ask you what the correct move is.
So I realize at this point that you had the ladder, but I also did feel like
Wow. So you are having
that-
the same blindness now that you had during the game. Let's see if that hint helps. So it's not even the correct move. There's two of them. You can pick either
you're
way.
right. There's no ladder. Dun 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 dun.
What are you looking at? You want
Looking at
control?
my two stones.
Pulling out?
No, I'm looking at my two stones, D4 and E4, and I'm trying to figure out, was there an issue? It seems okay. So maybe you can just do something like one sec. I was looking at extending on G3, but then if white stands up at F5.
Well, he can capture you this way, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's even better. That doesn't work.
Yeah, you're just missing it. This is very interesting to me that this is not immediately obvious to you.
Yep. Well,
You just capture these guys.
You're right. You're right. You can just capture it. What am I doing?
Yeah, you just missed this. You missed this in the game, and you missed it now. It's a really interesting question why that happened. I got a homework assignment. I got to figure out why it is that you just didn't even notice this. But what White missed it too, right?
Yeah.
Right, like he cuts you, and then it just doesn't work. It just completely falls apart in his face. Right? Normally, you just play this, and then you can connect, and he's got sort of cleaned this up, and this stone should be okay. You're probably not going to be pincering it, because if it jumps out, you're going to be running out of eye space and stuff. So it's maybe you're even coming out here. This is why this is usually so bad, right? Because you don't think you pincer it, because then you get problems in the corner. So you're probably coming out anyway. Whoops.
Yeah.
And then you can say, well, why did I do all this? I just strengthened White.
Yeah.
Right? But I think it makes sense for you to strengthen White this time, because you're never attacking this anyway. So I think it makes sense this time. But yeah, that's sort of what I expected it to go like. White just does this, and it just doesn't work. White can still try and fight like this, maybe?
Yeah.
Right? But this just fails. You can capture him either this way or this way, and the fight's just over.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
Right? And here's the thing. So here's another example of an unnecessary sacrifice, because what you do is you end up sacrificing these two guys.
Yeah.
Which are really important stones. Because they're the cutting stones, which are involved in both of the cuts. Like, fundamentally, this is a fight. It's better to save those two stones like this than to sack them. Because at least this way, say he captures you here, you at least have this ladder or something. These stones actually have some value. You can even make this forcing exchange first. Depending on how we feel about a Ko, maybe we can... No, he might ignore you and play this. Probably you have to come back anyway. Can you stretch first to make it so you get both of them? Yes, I think you can. I think now you can get both of them. And then this. Yeah. Anyway, we're not going to worry about the details here. The main point is you end up sacrificing probably the key stones. So we do this complicated mess. Yeah, so what ends up happening here is you go... Oh, no, you don't you do sacrifice those stones in the sense that you sacrifice them here, right? You don't connect. So you do give them up. Yeah. And they actually are important even now. But yes, this could be much worse for you. Instead of playing this, White can play this first, and then this.
Oh, that would have been much worse.
That would have been much worse. Maybe this first, actually. Maybe this way. And then this.
Oh, and then you squeeze it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just a mess. But okay. Yeah. Instead, is it right to make this move, or should we just do here? I think we should just play here. This fixes a lot of White Aji. It makes his shape ugly, but you lose a lot of like forcing moves in this area. I'm not saying you're going to play them, right? But White's not going to take them away from you. I don't think White's ever going to play this. Right? Basically ever. So if you're going to play this, you keep it for endgame, just in case maybe at some point you want something in here actually happens. It seems very unlikely, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, we get to this point, blah, blah. Yeah, this works.
I wish I captured that. Yeah, that would have been much better. Okay.
Yeah, it would have been much better if you'd captured these two stones, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what this ends up being, and this is the opposite kind of sacrifice from the way you've been sacrificing, because you were sacrificing always for the outside.
Yeah.
And here you sacrificed for the inside. And, I mean, to be fair, it sounds pretty difficult to get the outside here because White's strong on the outside, but still, this outside that White gets is much better than he deserves. Particularly since he captures you here. I really want to Yeah, I want to connect. Just to keep this cut alive.
I see.
Even if
Make
you're
it so
not
that
going to
they
fight
have
now.
Yeah.
Right? And this is important. These two stones, territorially, have almost no value. Right? But they're very, very important for the fight because they keep white split. Now, we could argue, like, this might not be that big a deal because, I mean, I guess this white group's already pretty safe. Right? But still, I don't think he's playing, like, this kind of thing. He's got to play here, maybe. And this means that even if you're not fighting, you still have moves like this that white has to be a little bit scared. Like, he can't just keep doing this, you know, and then eventually let you out. Like, eventually he's got to come back and fix it at some point.
Yeah.
Probably now.
Yeah.
Does this even work? He doesn't have the ladder. Does this work? Yes. This works. But only with the presence of 2. Right? So he's got to be, even if you're not going to fight, it still seems very useful. So anyway, we do this, he captures you, you end up capturing back, I guess you have no choice, and this just stinks.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a really big difference between the trade of inside for outside that you did here, and the inside for outside that he did here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think fundamentally what's happening is that you're getting really sack happy. Right?
I mean, I do think it's less of like an intentional, you know, oh, let's sack us, is more like, oh, crap.
I see. So it's not that you're sacking, it's that you're failing and saying, well, let's turn this into a sacrifice?
Yeah, well, I just like get into a situation and I'm like, I don't like it. You know, it feels like this is a losing situation. What can I do to at least get something out of it?
So it makes
so I don't
sense.
lose everything.
That makes sense. I sort of call those sometimes sad sacrifices instead of happy ones.
Yes.
Right? They're the ones where you're like, well, I mean, it's better than nothing, right? Yeah, I see that.
And
So maybe this game was not the best example of that because a lot of these sacrifices in this game do look like they might have been sad. But I've seen you doing a lot of sacrifices that looked happy before. Right? Like if we look at the other games that you had this week, I saw a lot of sacrifices that looked more intentional and had the same structure.
Yes.
Right? And I was like, well, I like this one, first of all, because it wasn't against a bot. You know how a lot of those accounts with V on Fox are bots?
Yep.
Yeah. So it wasn't against a bot, it's against an actual human being. I don't think that actually makes that much of a difference, but, you know, I feel better reviewing games played by humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, there was just a lot of these sacrifices, and it didn't necessarily lead to, like, a big moyo. It led to thickness, but the thickness isn't a huge moyo-type thickness, which is what you'd been doing in the other games, and I thought, well, let's try this one. The big moyos are cool, too, but those are just structurally very different games.
Yeah.
If you intend to start becoming a moyo player, let me know. Maybe we'll start changing the kinds of reviews and the kinds of talking we're doing, but you haven't ever been a moyo player, so...
I don't know if I am trying to become a Moyle player so much as like maybe it just happens more naturally for me on Fox as like a response to the play style or something, because people fight really heavily and then you're like,
yeah, and you've been finding like, here's the thing, a lot of the sacrifices that you're doing are actually good, but this game had like a lot of them that failed sort of for the same reason.
all right.
And you're telling me these were sort of bailing sacrifices. They're like, oops, let's get out of here with some piece of my tail intact. That's not bad thinking.
Yeah.
But maybe I think in all of these cases they were completely unnecessary, right?
Yeah.
So far every last one of them was completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you don't usually have this kind of trouble with like local fighting.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something about like the Fox play style of just like, oh, let's just cut. Let's just keep on cutting. And then, I don't know. Maybe my reading has gotten weaker. I'm not sure. I haven't been as diligent in my Tsumego, so it's possible.
Well, I don't know. I mean, my experience with you is that you usually get into mess because of strategic stuff rather than tactical stuff. And here, what I sort of feel is that what happened is that your tactics. It's not that it just sort of felt like you were making strategic moves, these big sacrifices for something, when they were just complete. There was a tactical solution, and I said that's sort of interesting. I don't see you doing that very often. Yeah,
I mean, I wouldn't say there's zero element of the strategy there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I've been quite sacrifice heavy recently.
Yeah.
It has been. We're like, oh, sure, give it up.
Yeah.
Though,
I mean, I'm
say,
totally down with sacrifices. I don't ever want to tell you not to do that, right? I'm the last person who's going to tell you not to sacrifice stuff. I mean, you know me. I'm very sacrifice happy myself, but what I do want to do is make sure that we understand what's getting sacrificed, what's getting traded.
Yeah. And I'm probably not that diligent at like explicitly thinking about that.
Yes,
so.
That was sort of the impression I got, and we have talked about how we think about that. But I did get the impression that you'd sort of, I don't know what the word I want to use is, but you'd sort of been a little careless about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd been careless about it in the sense that you sort of. I mean, you made some very good sacrifices that made sense in other games, and it sort of felt like you got carried away.
I have been more sacrifice heavy, for sure.
Yeah, you've been more sacrifice heavy, and not necessarily in a bad way every time. But we have to make sure, not necessarily in a bad way every time, right? Like, there's a lot of times when you made really good sacrifices that were really well thought out about stuff that didn't matter for stuff that did, and you did a lot of them. This game has a lot of the exact opposite.
Yes,
right?
I think so too.
And you said like the way that you felt about this game is you just kind of lost, and I thought, well, we can help you understand why. It has a lot to do with the sacrifices.
Yeah, it's because I think what I do remember is like in this game I felt like I got into like some sticky situations and then I sacrificed some stuff and then seems like it was better than nothing. But I don't think I thought that hard about like what was I giving up with these sacrifices, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, this bottom right, obviously it would have been better not to do it. But also I did feel a little bit like, well, I got to defend my groups. Now I don't really have any weaknesses left with the sort of black group on the right side. So maybe it's okay.
But white doesn't have any weaknesses left either, right?
Yeah, so I think that's the big thing in this game was that like I didn't think enough about what I was giving up in comparison to what I was getting for the sacrifices I was making.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's sort of the flavor that I got. Happy to know I was more or less right. I didn't. I mean, I saw you making so many sacrifices on purpose. I didn't know for sure that these weren't on purpose. Particularly like this one, it's really cool. But for instance, you can play here, and if he blocks, then this is a little different.
You know what? I didn't. I did not see that.
Right? And you're like, well, I mean, he can connect out, and you get there, and you might say, well, the outside connection is really good. It's true, right? But you get to save all of this instead of eating this, and this ladder doesn't actually work.
Yeah.
Right? So at some point, you might be able to pull out.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, I mean, maybe this is a tough move to spot.
Mm-hmm.
I did not see that.
Right. So, this is a very common. This is a very common idea. What you do is you just read this exactly what you played.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially, what we're basically doing is we're looking for a move in this that's not the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Very similar ideas here.
Yeah.
Right. This one doesn't work quite as well. If he just connects here, you try this, you end up sacrificing anyway.
Mm-hmm. In a
Right.
worse way, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Is it worse? I don't know. Not 100% sure if it's worse, but yeah, it still happens. You might be able to do this and live, but then you're not connecting. You're just living.
Mm-hmm.
It's much worse. So this is the one, but you can literally you just sort of when this happens you can just check this one too. It's in another failed sequence, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just when all of them don't work, you just sort of see if we can mess with the order, right? We jump to that one.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not a common mode of thought for me. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It would have been a good way to handle it.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. So blah blah blah. Do we have anything I think we've talked about the most important aspect of what we were doing this week.
Yeah, I think we've got a few minutes left. Over the top left just to make sure that nothing really.
Yeah, the top left. I don't like what you ended up doing here, but it is consistent with you trying to build the center thickness.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't think there really is a way to win this game. I think this game is busted. But the idea of trying to build some kind of center thickness, enticing white to play some weak stones in here and then attacking them, which is actually what you did.
Yeah.
If something's going to work, it does look like it's that. Would this be what you would play normally? No. Right? You're not going to give up the corner like this. And
no.
Here's the thing. Not only are you giving up the corner, right? This outside thickness, well, I mean, this is strong, so you can't attack that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not sure you're doing anything in this direction either, right? So it seems like the corner is probably better. Right? It's probably better. But I don't dislike this, especially if you sort of know that you're losing.
Yeah.
Right? And especially against players like this, the thing is, it did sort of work. White does this.
Yeah.
Right? And this isn't ever probably game winning. Because as much as you would like to attack these, white is also ridiculously thick.
Yeah.
Right? If white wasn't so thick, you might actually have a real attack. Right?
Yeah.
It would be very different, for instance, if you hadn't sacked the stone at X.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
because then
you would have more of a fight in the center. Because fundamentally, that's your plan. You're trying to win this game by fighting in the center, like this. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it's a good try. Right? It's never working, but it's a good try, and white did play some... I'm going to call this just nonsense. This is a frequent pattern that you'll see when Q players start to see this bunch of stuff in the center, right? Is that they'll throw stones into the center in the hopes of preventing you from making it, which is the exact opposite of what they should be doing, because essentially that's just giving you a target for your thickness.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that was not supposed to be that way. Yeah, they're just giving you a target for your thickness. I would say that, from the psychological perspective, this is the way that you might convince him to make a mistake. The thing is, he really did make a mistake, and you still couldn't actually pull this game together.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're right,
maybe it's possible by just continuing to fight. although it looks very hard. But here, instead of continuing to fight, you just sort of said, well, I've essentially claimed this.
Yeah. Which wouldn't have been.
Yeah. That's just not enough,
Okay.
right? Especially because white gets this in the process.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Maybe it's possible by continuing to fight. Probably this Kosumi. I know that it doesn't look super reasonable because you're getting cut and your one stone's going to be weak too. But, you know, your plan is to fight, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you can push instead or something. I mean, I guess white can just jump back here. And white doesn't need to try to keep anything here so long as it's all nice and connected and solid, right? So it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
There's no threat. So probably just go for it instead of that pushing move. You could try. You can try.
But stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta
It's like
be
just going
ambitious because the game's kind of lost. So you gotta go for broke.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. And it does seem like the part that's the most annoying is because, like, that C7 stone is there, or C7, C6, like those stones here, make it way easier for white to connect up to themselves.
Yeah, those two stones help. I mean, the main thing is that this stone is basically nothing.
Yeah.
Right? If that stone was actually doing something, if it had a job or something, right? Yeah. But, well, I mean, okay, so I'm maybe maligning it more than I should. It's almost nothing. If you cut here, it makes it so this doesn't work.
Oh, huh. That's kind of interesting.
Right? He can still capture you. He can capture you with the ladder, for instance. But the ladder's always a worse way to capture.
Huh.
Right? So saying that the stone is nothing is maybe an exaggeration, but it's very close to nothing.
Yeah.
It's very close to nothing, but it does have the slight value of making this cut not just explode immediately. Right? It probably this probably isn't good because you end up with a weak group anyway. So even if it happens, I don't know. But I mean, it might help a little bit in the center fight.
Yeah,
because it makes the cut in some cases possible. Because if he does this, then there's a ladder breaker. God knows, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
Well, cool.
Yeah. So your study for today, I do not want you to stop making big sacrifices. Okay. I love it. I think it's cool. It's something you haven't done before, which is almost on its own, working in its favor. Right?
Yeah.
So I want you to work on sort of carefully thinking about what the sacrifice entails. What did you get? What did you lose?
Yeah.
And that's a really hard thing to do during the game. Right?
Yeah.
Because it involves sort of looking back over the last moves. Right? What did it look like before? And you have a go game to play instead of trying to remember all that junk.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
But
so I want you to go back after the game. I don't want you to stop making sacrifices. I want you to go back over the game and make like an inventory. You made the sacrifice, which I totally want you to make. Right? I want you to do it. And then I want you to go back and sort of make an inventory. Like, what did I gain? What did I lose? What's the exchange?
Yeah.
Right? And like, if you want to send me written inventories, I am totally down. I will look at them and like double check, because it's always important. Like, for instance, when we get to like a sacrifice like this one, right? And you can talk about the territory all you wanted, right? But you might have missed that. It's not just the territory. You basically eliminated any prospect of ever fighting anywhere here again.
Yeah.
Right? For instance, it greatly strengthened the triangle stone on the opposite side of the board. Let's make it so there's only one triangle stone. We'll call it X instead. Right? It greatly strengthened the X stone on the opposite side of the board, which is something that could be missed.
Yeah.
Right? But the stone did get a lot stronger in the process of you sacking all of this stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
right?
Makes sense.
So I want you to do an inventory of it. Just double check and tell me about it, and I'll see if I spot things that you missed in the process.
Yeah, will do. That'll be homework for this week.
Yeah, sure. And I'm going to stop the recording. I keep forgetting where I put the recording. I put it on 5. There we go. And we'll stop it now.